Many thanks. Yeah, I'm Carsten Langerbein, working with Five Networks, and Five Networks is a security company. And in 2 years ago, I made my certification as certified ethical hacker. Yeah, it was from EC Council, and up front of this certification, there was a 7 days course where we learned hacking. Yeah, and it's really amazing. It's a great story behind it. It's a lot of business behind it. So I think if we are talking a lot about container infrastructures and application or Agile App Development, I think it's very important to don't forget the security part on it. Because if you are in a microservices architecture, then there typically are no controls, security controls on a per application base. Yeah? You might have some communication flows which are regulated, but on a per application, on the application layer, on layer 7, nobody looks into the traffic. Yeah? And therefore, it's very important to put the right security controls up front and to make clear what the right security controls are. I just want to highlight a report. This is a threat intelligence report because it's quite complex thinking about applications security. Yeah? You have a complete stack which you need to cover, and this is a report from F5, but it's free and doesn't cost anything, and it helps a lot to think about the complete stack. Yeah? And in this report, we analyzed from the last 10 years a couple of breaches, 433, and we analyzed the root causes for these breaches. Yeah? And if you look at an application architecture, you come quickly to the point that more than the half of the breaches were related to web application attacks. Yeah? And in that microservice architecture, we usually publish web applications. And please don't forget an API. If you think, yeah, we are just publishing an API, yeah, an API is typically nothing else than a web application. Yeah? And the second big point for the data breaches, or the second big reason for the data breaches, was the user identity, yeah, which is 1/3 of all the traffic. That means I have roughly 90% of attacks on my microservice architecture I can mitigate with a web application in front of it. Yeah? But typically I hear often from my customers and colleagues that application security is pretty difficult. Yeah? There are complex problems that needs to be think about, and usually it's taking a lot of money to put it in front of that, and that brings us to the point that application security is not easy to attend. Even if you are following secure coding practices, for example, you typically rely on some existing frameworks. Yeah? You don't code everything yourself. So if you rely on public frameworks, then there are typically known vulnerabilities. Yeah? In each and every solution, there are vulnerabilities. And there's a whole bunch of hackers specializing on these published known vulnerabilities. Why? Because there is a short time frame of a couple of days. Yeah? During that time frame, the attacker is able to use that vulnerability and get access into your microservice architecture, into your application. Yeah? Because it takes time until the provider of that framework or code solution will give you a fix, and it takes time until you can implement it. Yeah? So the next point, identity compromise. During the Certified Ethical Hacking course, I learned that it's very easy to break credentials. Yeah? There are tons of username and password combinations available freely on the internet. Yeah? And you can easily script it and put it against your application. And typically, people are somewhat lazy. Same for me. I don't want to manage a dedicated password for a dedicated application, so I reuse passwords. And even if you were not hacked or compromised, maybe some of your users reuse their passwords as well. How can you prevent against credential theft? It's pretty easy. You need, despite of the TLS encryption, you need an application layer encryption. So you need to obfuscate username, password fields. You need to hide the input there, and you need to encrypt the input there. And with that, you can keep the attackers out, and even keep the bots out. This is very important, and you should build that into each and every application. And that brings me to the point, application security needs to be done on a regular basis. It's the same life cycle like you use in Agile development. You have to ensure compliance with regulations, with policies, and that on a regular basis, because even they are changing. Then there are a lot of fears in the user community of your applications, or in the operating community of your applications. Are these security controls I put in front, are they impacting my performance, my usability? And the controls, if they are developed on a per app base, then it might be very, very cost intensive. So what needs to be done? I think you don't want to repeat all that security practices put into your application. So you should make these repeatable, reusable about each and every microservice you are publishing. And that brings me to the point where DevOps and SecOps needs to work closer together, because there's a big overlapping point. And that brings me to the point that web application firewalls might be a good thing to put in front of your microservice architecture, because a web application firewall is able to look deep into the traffic and can mitigate common vulnerabilities very easy out of the box without changing any code. All you need to do is applying a signature, applying a policy. This can be done automatically, and you are safe for that known vulnerability. That takes minutes instead of days or weeks until you get it fixed. So I covered it a little bit. Web application firewalls are protecting you for cross-site scripting attacks, injection attacks, and gives you the possibility to virtually patch your applications. And for me, the very important thing, due to the great spread of infrastructures, is that an agile web application firewall should use the same tools, or agile security products in general should use the same tools as you are using for your Agile App Development. You can leverage a repository for the configuration of your applications, and then or for the configuration of the web application firewall policy. And then it doesn't matter where you deploy that firewall, application firewall policy. Even in Kubernetes, in public cloud and infrastructures, or whatever. And here comes the good news. A web application firewall can reduce costs. Let's think, as that is the traffic which comes to your application firewall. And it's pointed out gray because without any inspection, you don't know what comes to your app. And then you look a little bit deeper into the web application or into the traffic, and place a WAF inside it. And the WAF starts remediating all the network floods, for example. They are simply blocked and doesn't come to your application. And complete malformed requests which are not RFC compliant or whatever, you will know that when you are when you have apps which are published in the internet. You can eliminate the access of scanners and bots at least for the bad bots. Yeah, of course you want to be found by search bots or something like that. Yeah, and you can block bad actors. Yeah. And bad hosts based on IP reputation, for example. All that can be done with a web application firewall. Yeah? And then a web application firewall is able to learn how your application works, yeah? And can order the request, and that leads to decrease of traffic, yeah? So which really comes to your app, and that leads that you can size your app smaller. Yeah? There are some additional considerations from my side, which I just want to give out here. Applications and vulnerabilities in an agile development area constantly changes. So you need to keep up. You need to keep pace with these changes, and I don't think that you can all do inside the code, especially if you have a couple of applications. Yeah, we are talking about microservices architectures. So there are a lot of applications which are communicating with each other. And to be proactive from a security posture, you should go far beyond security, far beyond vulnerabilities, and should make this application, or should integrate this application security stuff into your CI/CD pipeline. Yeah? And good security tools can help reduce costs, and the good thing about reducing all the traffic which comes to your application is that you get better business intelligence out of the traffic which reaches your application, because this is only valid traffic, yeah? And you don't analyze all the crap traffic which you don't need. Yeah? And the last thing is, I would ask you to push hard in your companies to make application security, web application firewalls, a part of your CI/CD pipeline. Okay, many thanks.
We have one question for you.
Oh, yeah.
There is a saying, never ask a barber if you need a haircut. So there is a saying, never ask a barber if you need a haircut. And you have a lightning talk here, and you also actually sell WAF. So what would be convincing for me to actually really look into WAF in general terms? And where would you lead me to get more information, which is not like F5 information?
Well, there is this open web application security project, OWASP. Yeah, you might have heard about that, and they are giving out a recommendation what you should consider when you want to protect your web application firewalls. Yeah. This might be a good start, and after then, yeah, ask some analysts or ask yourself, do you want a web application firewall which is highly intensive from a management perspective, or do you want to rely on just adding a web application firewall based on your infrastructure as code infrastructure and the possibilities? And then you might find out which are the good solutions working in your environment. Does that answer the question?